Yes. So on that note, really quick, before I tell you the other thing, strawberry forms were due today, but instead of being hectic and like braving weather and sending pictures and stuff, we will just, I gave us enough of a buffer with when our orders were due to Florida Farm Bureau that we'll just have the forms due on Monday. So if you just want to bring those with you, then that would be awesome. I love it. Okay. Other thing is, don't forget your January AET entries. Did I tell you guys this yesterday? Okay, perfect. So January AET entries, make sure that you do those. I'd like to have those done by Tuesday. That means I will grade them roughly sometime next week after Tuesday. But if you it will not be before Tuesday. So if you turn it in later than that, you're kind of gambling with yourself. But get those done. And then also, if you weren't at school yesterday, I handed out officer applications. So if you are a junior and that has been something that you have been thinking about, and you didn't get a chance to grab one of those, if you'll be at school on Monday, they're not due till the 24th. If you're quarantined, they're not due till the 24th. So that gives like 2 3/4 weeks. So that should be enough to span over if you do get quarantined at any time. Still giving you time on either the front end or the back end to grab one or to turn it in. If you're interested, if you have questions, I put the video up that I told about the freshmen, or that I told the freshmen with yesterday. So it's a little bit more in detail, and you can watch that on the classroom. But I handed out, guys, I'm so excited. I handed out 42 applications. I will not get all 42 of those back, but I handed out 42 applications, and I think that's exciting. So. The other thing I was going to tell you is I think what Tess is working on right now, if you guys didn't see the reminder, you haven't checked out the classroom yet, I sent out a survey, a link to a survey, and it is from our committee meeting yesterday. We have ideas for future events stirring, and so we just need some answers on this survey for this future event. So it's just a fun survey. It's not anything where there's like right or wrong answers, anything like that. So be funny, be creative with it if you want to, but you just need to fill that out. And that survey is what's going to determine your like remote attendance today. So just make sure, if nothing else, you fill that survey out to get credit for being in class today.
Miss Wallet, wait till you see my Miss Wallet quote.
I'm a little nervous how many questions in there have my name on it and what the responses will be. A little nerve-wracking, but it's fine. Ooh. I'm gonna add one more on there, and if you already took it, it's super fine, but this might be a ringer, and I'm just really excited to see what people say. Just had an idea.
What is it?
Have you already submitted it?
Yeah.
No.
I'll text you my answer.
Okay.
I'll just go back on and only answer that question. Oh, shoot. No, it won't let me because you have to answer all the questions.
Yep.
Oh,
I'll text you the question. So
okay. I'm very curious now.
Yes. I just got a good idea. I'm really more so curious as to what people will say than for the usage of it. But
because I already submitted mine too.
It's okay. Yeah. I'll do the same thing for you. I'll text it to you. Okay. Oh, wow, there's already 32 responses. Y'all jumped on that fast.
The fact that it asked, what's your favorite way to travel? And I said digger, really killed me. Really killed me.
I said the FFA camp bus.
Yeah, I said a school van, but only when Miss Wallet isn't driving.
Hey.
The FFA camp van, never forget.
Oh my gosh, there are so many of you responded so quickly. I'm impressed.
Camry. When I went to FFA camp my first year, it was like a couple weeks after we had gotten on that trip. And my mans, I was hanging out with them because I was the last person to be picked up because Miss Wallet told my mom the wrong time for pickup. And he said, oh, go take a picture of that van and send it to Miss Wallet.
Rude.
Did it still have blood on it?
It was so funny. There were like little specks of mud. I'm not gonna lie.
I'm dead.
Miss Wall, I was really about to put your favorite FFA saying, and I said rude, and then you just said it 2 seconds after I clicked the submit button.
Oh, as soon as I saw that one, I put what with a period afterwards because every time Cameron and I look at it, she goes, what?
Oh, this is only Maddie and Cameron will understand this, but I said don't put anything about people on there.
Oh, somebody said that their favorite thing about me was my personality. Oh, you guys, too much.
They're lying.
There was a question on there that was, what was your favorite thing about Miss Wallet?
Well, it was the quirkiest thing. I'm taking my favorite thing that stands out the most.
I put your toes.
Yeah, a lot of people have. Kind of rude.
I put your love for Dunkin' coffee.
Oh. So many toe comments. Oh my gosh. Love this. Okay. I'm actually really excited to see all the answers that you guys come up with. That'll be really fun down the road. That's all I'm going to say. If you're at the committee meeting yesterday, you probably know why, but it'll be really fun. Yeah. So today we're going to skirt right into it. We're going to learn a little bit more about livestock, take advantage of this, and so kind of pump through some. So let me screen share real quick.
You want us, if we don't have our books, do you want us to write this down on a sheet of paper?
Yeah, so today, let me get this going really quick, and then I'll give you a little bit more instruction about that. Someone's watching an emergency show in the background. I hear the ambulance. Okay. So yes, today we're going to just talk about a little bit more about livestock evaluation, and what we're going on with that. So yesterday we added a little bit more to what we had talked about. If you don't have your book with you, if you do have your book, obviously go ahead and, so you don't have to do this twice, just go ahead and write these things in that book. And then at the end of, when we're done with all this, if you're watching this back later at the end of the video, just take a picture of those pages and email it to me, and that'll be, you're just basically going to get participation points for today. Let me make this really quick.
What page is this?
They start on 191. Okay, can you guys see me in the corner and the screen? Could you see me? Can you see me right now?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
You can see my little thing. Okay. Can you see everybody else right now, or is it just me?
I can see people on the side. Like it has like a bunch of people on the side, like the select few.
I can see you and like Maddie, Cameron, Bryce's name,
Okay.
and myself.
I just didn't know with the screen share if you could still see me or not. So when I do like draw something, bless you, draw something, or like do if you can see me or not. So anyways, yeah, if you have your book, go ahead and then just take a picture of that at the end and email it to me. It's just really going to be like participation points for today, just so that I know that you watched it. If you don't have your book with you, you can write it down and send me a picture of that. Or you can just type up like the key points and send that to me as an email, whatever it is that you want to do there, just to, like I said, just show me that you watched the video. And to really know if you watched the video, at some point strategically, before this class is over at 10:27, I'm going to say a code word. It's kind of like a radio show when they say like between these hours, we're going to tell you a word and you call us with it and then you win like $1 million. I don't have $1 million for you, but I do have points. So you will make that code word the subject of your email.
Miss Wallet, did you hear my sneeze?
No, but I saw you sneeze.
Okay, I was muted because sometimes you see those things on Twitter where it's like when you're muted, your teacher can still hear you. And so you said that and I was like, oh my God, it's true.
I should have told you yes. Disappointed. No, I just saw that and I assumed. So with looking at animals, just to kind of summarize again what we've talked about the last 2 days, there's 5 main things. Just like with meat, you want to look at the muscling, the trimness, and the quality. With animals, you want to look at 5 different main categories. So the first is the degree of muscling, the degree of finish or leanness, the growth capacity and volume, structure and soundness, balance and style. So our main number one rule when we're evaluating livestock is that you start at the bottom and work your way up. I won't quote Drake today because I've quoted him the last 2 days and you guys laughed the first day and you rolled your eyes the second day, so not gonna bring him back up. But that's not, again, that's not starting at the butt to the head. That's working where those animals hit the floor at their feet to their back. So starting there and working your way up, just because you see more important qualities where they hit the ground as opposed to on the top as far as overall like structure, which we'll get to down the road. Degree of muscling. So again, what are some of the things that we're looking at? The main places that we're looking to see muscling. Anybody know? The main places that we're looking to see muscling. Where do we look for that?
The loin,
Okay, what are we looking for on the loin?
the butterfly.
Yeah, so the butterfly effect, right? Where we talked about being able to actually see, and for one of my classes yesterday, we drew out the loin is actually a really long muscle, right? And if you remember our days with Dr. Dan, that is the cross section that we were looking at. So a loin is actually really long, and from a cross section it's shaped like this. So when we're looking at that butterfly of the back, we're actually looking at those 2 loin muscles and the cross sections of them, and then they span the whole length of the back. So that's where you want to see a lot of muscle there, because more than likely in most animals, that's your most valuable cut of meat. You also want to look at the space in between their rear legs, right? If they're carrying a heavier load, then they're going to need to be further apart, and also the width across their backside. In relation to that, you're also looking at the width in between their feet and the relation to that and the width of their backside. And if they're overfilling, and I think I used this example yesterday, if Alexis doesn't mind if I pick on her again, we talked about if you took Alexis and you added like 200 pounds to her, homegirl's going to be carrying a little bit more of a load than she's built to, right? That same instance, that's probably about, and again, we're not telling him that I'm picking on him, but it's okay. If we took Mr. Maurice, who's like 6'5", right? That's probably his weight right now. But when you look at him, you're not like, wow, he's really overfilled, right? It's just that he has a larger capacity to hold that. So it's based more off of how much are they carrying in relation to how much they can carry. Okay, so it's kind of each individual basis there. So we looked at these pictures yesterday of our super thick, right? And how that was good as opposed to being so thin with that space in between the legs. Same with these lambs and the hogs. We looked at this butterfly effect where you can actually see the loin definition there, as opposed to there, it's all kind of filled in with fat. We also talked yesterday about the degree of finish. So remember that finish is kind of how close they are to that finish line on the race. So if they are not quite there yet and they haven't quite met their capacity, they haven't quite filled out all the way yet, they're not really ready for market, we would call that underfinished. If they're starting to get a little bit too fat, they're overusing those essential nutrients, right? The protein that we're starting to feed them is turning to fat immediately because they don't have any more muscle that they can build. So in those situations, that's what we would call overfinished. So the goal of being a producer is to get that animal as close to market weight without getting them too fat or without slaughtering them too early. We learned to look at the tail head on cattle, look at that flank. So one thing that I taught 4th period yesterday, I don't know if I said it to 2nd, is I want everybody to take their hands like this. Go ahead and turn them inside out. Inside out, I don't really know if that's the word, but do this. And if you hold them out in front of you, do you guys see how you can see like your webbing right here? So I want you to imagine that that is the flank of an animal. So you can kind of see some skin. The foreflank and the rear flank is kind of the armpit and the leg pit. So when you are looking at an animal, sometimes if they're underfinished, they're actually going to have a really shallow flank where it kind of cuts up and then down as opposed to coming straight across. So if you're ever curious about that, when you're looking at a class of animals, you kind of take your hands and go like this, and their flanks really should match up with your finger flanks here. Does that make sense? So kind of a cool little trick there to see if they're overly shallowed or not, because they're going to have a similar like web situation there with their skin. We looked at these pictures just as being smooth over the top, clean, and the ribs, some of that stuff. So today we're going to talk about growth capacity and volume. So I used these examples yesterday. I'm going to go for a little field trip. So follow my voice. If we're talking about the capacity or the volume of like a container, how do you figure that out? How do I know if one box is going to hold more than another box?
Length times width times height, and then whichever one's bigger.
Yeah, fourth period got into this a little bit yesterday. Second period didn't touch on this at all. So kind of be some different places here. But yeah, so if I have this box, okay, Floppy fold it in. This is going to hold a little bit, right? This is going to hold some stuff. If I have this box, this is going to hold a little bit more, right? So when we're just looking at these at a volume or capacity standpoint, which one is going to hold more things?
The bottom
The T-shirt
one.
Express one.
Yeah, the T-shirt Express, some shameless advertising for them, I guess. The bigger one, the white one, whichever it is, however you want to say that, and it's because it has more volume, right? What is the formula for volume that you learned in math class?
Length times width times height.
Maddie said, I already said that, Miss Wallet. Length times width times height. So when we're talking about a box and we're talking about an animal, in terms of capacity and volume, we're talking about the same thing. So again, if we go back to that Mr. Morris versus Alexis comparison, we take length times, my bad, a little wobbly. We take length times width times height. They're going to be different in their capacity, right? And it might seem weird to talk about people that way, but it's true. So Mr. Morris can fit more inside of him, right? He can fit more muscle, mass, fat, whatever, because he's taller, wider, and longer. Anyways, he has more capacity, right? He has more volume. So when we're looking at an animal, some of you the other day when I drew that boxy animal on the board, you were like, oh my gosh, he's so boxy. That's not right. But you almost want to think about animals like a box, okay? So when we're looking at them capacity-wise, we want to look at their length, okay? So length would be this, if we're looking at them like a box. And that is not their length from the tip of their nose to the end of their tail. That is their length from their shoulder to their rump, okay? So from like the back of their shoulder to the front of their rump is going to be the length, because inside of back of shoulder to rump is what?
The loin.
It's the loin, it's the side, it's the meat. That's where you're getting all of that good stuff that you can eat, right? The head and that type of thing, there's not as much marketable product there. So you're looking, if we take the head off, like we're just chopping them at the shoulder, chopping them at the butt, we kind of make ourselves into a box, and that's what we want to look for. So the length of that animal, the longer animal you have here, the more, Sydney just said that's where the loin is, that's your most valuable cut. So the longer they are, if the loin is 1/2 of the back, right, this little flap is our loin, So the longer your animal, the longer the loin, the more money you're going to get off of that because the more product you've got there. Okay. That being said, then you want to go length times width. So width is across the backside. Okay. So again, looking at that rear end, looking at that butt, from edge to edge, how wide are they? If we narrow that down even further, because sometimes these pigs, these cows are going to be big booty Judies, right? So they're going to go from their back and go whoop, okay, for their butt. So if we even narrow that into just their back, looking at the actual across their back, how wide are they up here? Because again, you're getting two loins, flap, flap, okay? These are their loins. You're getting two loins out of that back. That means that when we cut it and we look at it Dr. Dan style, your loin eye is going to be bigger if they're wider, okay? If this is the width of the animal, then the width of their loin is only going to be half of that. So you're looking at that loin eye by going across the back there and just how much capacity they have. Your height then is not from the ground to their back. You're not talking about if I measured them on those cute little measuring things that parents use to see how much your kid grew, how tall are they? We're looking from their belly, from their underside to their back, okay? So when I do this, how tall are they in that regard? Because this is, again, going to be your loin. This is going to be your side. So on your pigs, you're going to get your bacon from there. And through here is going to be that tenderloin, okay? Where on your cows, you're going to get those really important, really expensive steaks. Your sirloins up in here, all that good stuff is in kind of your side back loin area. So the more depth you have here, the more you're going to get out of that. The downside of that is you want them to have a straight underline, just like the straight bottom of this box. You don't want them to be saggy to when they walk, they kind of sway back and forth on their underline because that means they're just fat. Okay? Does that make sense? Kind of the box theory?
Hey, I have a question.
Yeah.
Would it be possible if like an animal had a limp to where when they cut it open, like the carcass, one of the loins was like more muscular and like a better loin than the other half of it?
I mean, yeah, it could be. If you had like, if they favored one leg over the other, then that leg muscle, that ham is probably going to be more developed on that side. Because we talked about when you work out your animals, you're really working out just like you're working yourself out to be an athlete, to be strong, to build tone. Like you're doing all those things with your animal too. And so like you're going to build muscle equally. So like if you have your arm in a sling, right, for 2 months and you can only write, eat, lift, whatever with this arm's going to be a lot more Popeye than this one. So it is possible that you could have, and that's what sometimes too, when we get to balance, we'll talk about that. But some judges, you might hear them in the show ring talk about the balance of an animal is not necessarily because they have a limp, but are they evenly built? Are they symmetrical in their build? Because that's something that's going to be important too to the structure and the way that they walk is that they are well balanced. So when we get to that portion, that's kind of what that means. Yeah. Good question though. Your code word, by the way, today, what your subject needs to be, gonna throw this at you, is Wilmington. So Wilmington needs to be your subject of your email. So when we're talking about capacity and volume, that pretty much sums that up. Length or width, you want to look again across that animal's back. You'll see a lot of judges walk behind an animal in the show ring. That's because they're really trying to get a good look at that width, also a good look at the tone in that backside. But also you might watch them bring the animals towards them because they're also looking at the width across the chest. In cattle, that's where your brisket's going to be, right? But you want that animal to be just as wide in the chest and the front legs as they are in the back. And again, that kind of comes down to balance. But they're going to want to see the distance in between their rear legs, but also the distance in between their front legs. Because if they walk really wide in their rear, but in the front, they're like this close together, then they're not going to be as wide in their chest. So this is a good width for a pig to naturally walk. This guy's a little bit more narrow in his build. The depth of body, again, that's kind of the height that we talked about, where this one kind of comes up and in. Homeboy needs to fill out a little bit more, okay? This guy, His flank's a little bit too deep. I would say he's almost a little over finished because you see how he kind of starts to sag. She, I guess, kind of starts to sag. So that's where you're looking at in that depth department. This is a good even, looking at that depth again, thinking about it from top to belly, is the depth of that animal. Okay. And then the length is from flank to flank again, so that's your flank to flank. Okay. So discontinuing the shoulders, discontinuing the rump, but you want to grow the frame, grow the muscle, and then fat. So your goal when you are growing an animal is that they're going to grow in frame size, then they're going to fill in that frame with muscle, and then they're kind of filling in the seams with fat. So as a producer, that's the goal that you want, right, for your animals to grow. You don't want them to get really fatty before they even have a structure to put that fat in. Okay. So again, looking at the length, this is your flank. So again, if we kind of take our hands and line it up to that animal, do they have a good kind of 90-degree flank? Is it a good uniform length? Yeah. Does that all make sense to you? Yes, no, maybe so. Okay. That is actually, we're all out of time today because this class is supposed to end at 10:27. So on Monday, we will pick up, talk about structure and soundness, talk about balance and style, and then we'll get some real critters in here and take a look at them. Cool.